observing and then working alongside her parents, she noticed the little things about the stately home whose dark blue steps she climbed. Though the porch and its white columns and railings were immaculate, no rocking chairs with cushions slightly worn from sitting occupied the vast space. No wooden swings swayed in the early afternoon breeze. No small tables claimed the corners. No lush green plants were tucked under the windows. If she had to conjure up a word to describe the place, it would be lonely. The place was lonely. She fought the urge to rub her chest again. Her mind argued that, coming from her large, boisterous, nosy, and loving family, there was no way she could understand the empty ache of loneliness. Yet her heart, the heart of the girl who'd faded into the shadow of her more brilliant, vibrant siblings, told her brain it had no idea what it was talking about. "Come on, girl. The town hermit's porch is not the place for a counseling session," she muttered to herself, shoving aside the guilt at her uncomfortable thoughts. She came from a home with adoring parents, and sometimes pains in the ass, but for the most part wonderful brothers and sisters. Complaining insulted all of them. Inhaling a deep breath, she tucked open the storm door and knocked on the front door with the beautiful stained glass windows. It slowly opened, and she locked her knees. Not since the early hours of a morning a little over a year ago had she experienced such a strong urge to bolt. But bolting had been her reaction to an utter loss of control on that night. She shook her head, hard. The fewer thoughts on all of that, the better. Holy shit! She closed her eyes in an unnaturally long blink. Lifted her lashes. Nope. The man was still there. Standing at the front door of this lonely house was the man who transformed her into a wild, hedonistic being on that night, the one she'd just been thinking about. It had been a little over a year, and even though the door concealed half his chiseled features and dense dark scruff covered the lower half of that beautiful face, she hadn't forgotten the one person who'd made her burn every one of her rules on a pyre of sex. Control. That was what her rules were about. Control over her actions, her words, her expectations, her future, her heart. If she had control over all of those, mistakes were minimal. Yet she'd lost complete control that night, and the man looming in the doorway right now, like a brooding giant, was a glaring neon mistake. A mistake that had sent her running out of that hotel room in the dark without leaving her name or a way to contact her. What? His brusque, rude AF, question snapped her out of her memories. Swallowing a curse, she scrounged for a smile and forced it to her lips. "Well, this is awkward." The man she knew as Patrick shifted in the doorway and, shock, slammed into her. A gasp escaped. Hurt for him swelled, submerging her surprise, and she moved forward, lifting her arm toward him. "I didn't know." "What do you want?" He cut her off. Those hazel eyes that had been so warm and flirtatious during their night together in Boston now glittered like chips of cold amber. She lowered her arm, embarrassment keeping company with the unease, but neither could outtrace the pain for him, for the sensual, laughing, charming stranger who'd gifted her with hours of abandonment and freedom. Such abandonment and freedom, she'd run scared from it. Because he'd obviously suffered. A person who'd survived whatever tragedy had left the scars marring the left side of his face must have suffered, and horribly. If not for the slip of the door, she wouldn't have guessed. The right half of his face remained exactly as she remembered, a perfect study of symmetry, angles, and beauty. Dark, arching brows that somehow conveyed both wickedness and elegance. Slumberous, thickly lashed hazel eyes. Cheekbones that an artist would despair of perfecting. An arrogant blade of a nose softened by a too lush, carnal mouth that could stretch wide in a charismatic smile or harden in sensual promise.